To begin this story, we need to go back to the year 1959. It was July 18th. One day, a family who lived in a nearby suburb was enjoying an exhilarating camping trip at Perdido Bay, Alabama, which was supposed to be an exciting family camping trip, but turned out to turn into their family's worst nightmare. Daniel Barter was only 4 years old at the time of his disappearance, and was described as a bright and happy child. He came from a large family, and being one of 7 children born to Paul and Maxine Barter. In the 1950s, outdoor activities was quite common in the summer. It was a period of time that the families gathered together. And what started as a completely ordinary morning in a small town outside of a huge city in Alabama, Daniel Barter had gone camping at Perdido Bay with his parents, a cousin, and 3 of his 6 siblings. His other siblings were staying with relatives. The campsite was about an hour's drive from the Barters' home. The member of his family embarked on a trip to Perdido Bay, located near Lillian, Alabama. Upon arriving on the bay's eastern shore, he spent the night in their uncle's car, with other children. Danny was, at the time, wearing the gray boxer shorts that he slept in between 9:30 a.m. and 10 a.m., while Daniel's parent was preparing equipment for a fishing trip. They later noticed that Danny would get separated from the rest of his family. At the time, he was carrying a bottle of Lehigh soda around with him, and was barefoot. But within a short period, once his mother, Maxine Barter, realized that Danny disappeared from sight, his family started to be afraid that the worst would happen to Daniel Barter. At that point, she started to look for her son, but could not locate him, or any sign of him anywhere. Somehow, this 4-year-old boy simply vanished into thin air, never to be seen again. Not long after this, authorities were called in, and began a full search of the immediate area. The search was extensive and immediate, on the banks of Perdido Bay, just a few miles north of the US 98 bridge that leads to Florida. It comprised of 2,000 people, including 300 members of the US Navy, and local military bases, and 150 law enforcement officers, and firemen from Alabama, Florida, and surrounding states. Civilian volunteers in groups of 25, came together, and walked shoulder to shoulder, over a 5-square-mile radius, through the surrounding woods, and swamps, and skin divers worked to search the bottom of the bay. As well, jeeps, helicopters, and horses were brought in, and 3 days into the search, bloodhounds combed a 5-mile area, tracking the missing boys sent to the same spot, on a nearby road. But there was no trace of Danny, then or now. The bottom of the lake was dragged, and sinkholes and thickets were searched. In the hopes of potentially jarring a body loose, dynamite was tossed into the bay, and other surrounding areas where Daniel might have fallen into. After more than a week, the search was called off. There were no signs Daniel had gone into the bay, and no evidence was uncovered. It was one of the most intensive searches in Baldwin County history. As the area was swampy, and infested with alligators and snakes, hunters looked for large alligator, and sliced open their stomachs, looking for the boys' remains. However, no evidence was found that pointed to Daniel being attacked. One evening, Not long after this encounter, a neighbor reported seeing a strange man, looking into the bedroom where the Barter boys, including Daniel, slept. When the neighbor and Maxine went to the spot where the man had been standing, they saw he was already gone, but had left footprints under the window. The police were called, and they made casts of the prints, and took photos. It's unclear if this evidence still exists. After these incidents occurred, Maxine told police about a strange encounter that had happened the morning before Daniel disappeared. She said that she'd driven him and one of his brothers to the store, and had left the pair in the car, while she ran in to grab something. While she was gone, an unknown man had driven up next to the car, and stared at the boys without speaking, before driving away. Daniel's brother reported this to their mother, upon her returning to the car. The initial theory is said that Danny has been abducted by unknown persons. This depends on numerous encounters the Barter family had in the days before and after he went missing. It's currently unknown if the encounters were with the same man, or numerous. Another theory in this case was that Danny drowned in Perdido Bay. However, his family profoundly disagree with this theory, as he didn't like the water, and there were no footprints in the sand that led to the bay. Also, the bay was very shallow at the time Daniel went missing. A final theory, that has since been deemed unlikely, is that Daniel was attacked, and or eaten by an alligator. It is worth mentioning, that the hunters searched the stomach contents of large ones seen near the bay. But found no remains, or evidence that Daniel had met this end. The case remains unsolved for years, but investigators were unable to discover any credible leads. After Daniel's disappearance, his family moved to Texas. Numerous members of the missing boy's family have since passed away. His father died in 1965, with his mother passing in 1995. In 1997, his brother, who was born in after his disappearance, died of cancer. The rest of Daniel's siblings are alive, and hopeful the case will one day be resolved. They believe their brother is still out there, and that they'll be reunited. In 2009, his loved ones returned to the campsite to remember their missing brother, and rededicate the half-century mission to find him.